Most people run when a job sounds too easy, when the pay makes no sense and the rules sound outright bizarre. I didn't run. I took the job because 48 hours ago my absolute worst option wasn't dying. It was staying alive. My life didn't ruin itself overnight. It was a slow-motion car crash that took years to finally hit the wall. It started simple enough, right after college graduation. I was sitting at a sports bar with a few friends, 5 or 6 drinks deep, feeling like the world was wide open. I put $15 on a harmless little fight parlay. I'd never gambled a day in my life, but that night, 15 bucks turned into 200. It wasn't a life-changing amount of money, but it planted a parasite in my brain. I spent the next few years chasing that exact same high. Even when I hit crazy bets that paid out 60 times more, it never felt that good again. Eventually, the luck ran out entirely. The bridges burned, the legal trouble stacked up. Persistent, scary-looking debt collectors started blowing up my phone. The only thing keeping my head above water was my day job. It was one of those corporate gigs where you make great money to update a spreadsheet for an hour and sit around for the rest of the shift. But when the company hired restructuring consultants, I was the first one cut. I got a decent severance package. I actually managed to triple it the following week betting on golf, of all things. A smart person would have updated their resume and looked for work. Instead, I spent every night diving into analytics, line movements, and sports psychology. I was convinced I was a mathematical genius, when really I was just a desperate addict sinking deeper into a hole. Then came the bender. Coked out of my mind, I put a massive, wildly stupid bet on a single boxing match. It flopped hard. To cover the damage, I threw what was left into another long-shot fight parlay. That flopped too. 4 months after losing my job, my $45,000 in savings was entirely gone. My debt was floating somewhere around 35 grand. Across all my accounts, I was down to $27.50. My credit cards were maxed, my friends stopped answering my texts, and muscle-bound guys built like brick walls were showing up outside my apartment building. A few days ago, 2 collectors almost kicked my front door off its hinges. My neighbor, an old military veteran, had to come out with a shotgun and threaten to blow their kneecaps off just to make them skedaddle. I knew my time was up. I was broke, terrified, and desperate. So drunk off bottom-shelf vodka, I tried something embarrassing. I used AI to generate sob stories and started e-begging across Reddit. I edited out the obvious ChatGPT phrasing and spammed every community I could find. Predictably, I got called out and banned almost everywhere. But just as I was ready to give up, a direct message popped into my inbox. The user's name was Scott. He told me he saw my post and wanted to help. He said a friend of his owned a remote, failing mall outside the city limits. The owner was a rich eccentric who refused to let the property shut down, so he was hiring people to act as fake shoppers, mystery shoppers, just to make the building look like it still had life. The rules Scott laid out were absurdly specific. I had to walk into the mall at a set time, head to the second-floor Starbucks, and tell the barista I was part of the program. She would hand me $100 in cash. I had to spend every single penny of that $100 inside the stores while acting like a completely normal customer. The pay was $250 an hour, transferred instantly to my bank account the moment I finished my shift. Scott warned me that I couldn't leave early or I'd forfeit the pay. But then he added something that chilled me. If you see or hear something weird, ignore it. But if you feel like you are in genuine danger, just leave. My friend likes to keep tabs on those kinds of incidents. It sounded like a trap, a setup to get me out into the middle of nowhere, but what was someone going to steal from me? My organ values were about the only thing left. Besides, I owed $10,000 to a heavy-hitting cartel dealer named Renzo. Renzo had given me until next Tuesday to pay him back. If I didn't, he promised he would skin me alive and throw me into a vat of boiling oil. I did the math. 40 hours of work at the mall would give me the exact 10 grand I needed to stay alive. So I drove out there. The mall was situated 45 minutes out of the city, isolated between a gray industrial strip and miles of flat, dead farmland. The parking lot was massive, but only a fraction of the spots were filled. I downed a vodka Red Bull in the front seat, checked the clock, and walked through the heavy glass doors. The second I crossed the threshold, the air changed. It felt thick, stale, subtly wrong in a way that made the hairs on my arms stand up. The mall had all the standard stores, H&M, Foot Locker, Sephora, but everything felt muted, off-kilter. I took the escalator to the second floor, looking for the Starbucks. I finally found it tucked into a dark corridor surrounded by abandoned, boarded-up storefronts. I walked inside. The place was empty except for a young female barista standing behind the counter. When I approached her, she gave me a look of pure, unadulterated venom. It wasn't standard customer service annoyance. It was like I had walked in and slapped her across the face. I stammered, completely thrown off. I'm, part of the program. She rolled her eyes and sighed loudly. You're supposed to buy something first, didn't they tell you? No, I admitted. Order something, hand me cash, and I give you the change. Get it? She snapped. I dug into my pocket, pulled out a crumpled $1 bill and handed it over. She snatched it, slapped the cash register and handed me back 10 crisp $10 bills. $100. She took 4 whole minutes to pour a basic black coffee, limping heavily as she moved around the counter. When I tried the coffee outside, it tasted like burnt charcoal and chemicals. I threw it in the trash. I spent the next few hours wandering the concourse, trying my best to look like a guy killing time. But the people inside, they weren't right. Some shoppers walked in rigid, perfect straight lines, staring fixedly ahead like soldiers marching to a beat only they could hear. Others stood completely frozen in the middle of hallways, plastering massive, empty grins on their faces and staring daggers at anyone who passed. I tried stopping at the Chili's for a drink to take the edge off. The tables were completely empty, but every single seat at the bar was occupied by middle-aged men sitting in absolute, heavy silence. When the bartender finally acknowledged me, he glared as if I'd insulted his mother. I ordered a margarita. He poured a shot of cheap tequila into a glass, threw in a lime, topped it off with Sprite, and slammed it down so hard it splashed over my knuckles. When I tried to order a second drink, he ignored me entirely. When I yelled out, asking why nobody in the bar was talking, a guy down the counter shouted back, "There's too many people in here right now." The bartender added, totally deadpan, "It's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. How busy can a Chili's get? Come back when it's emptier." The room went dead silent again. I dropped a 10 on the bar and walked out. The strange occurrences kept stacking up. I stopped by an electronics store and an old man rushed to the metal gate shouting, cell phone, fix cell phone." When I told him my phone wasn't broken, his face fell flat. He walked inside, pulled down the heavy steel security gate and shut off all the lights. A woman walked past me with a tray of free samples, offering dollops of a thick, gray, bubbling sludge she insisted were cinnamon rolls. In the clothing stores, the logos were misspelled, Undre Armour. In the movie theater, the Showtime screens were corrupted with static. The worker told me to drop $10 on the counter and walk into any room, but warned me not to wake up the manager sleeping in the box office. I sat alone in a dark theater watching a movie, only for a strange woman to walk in, sit directly next to me in an empty room, freeze for 30 minutes, and then silently leave. By 7 o'clock, the terror was overwhelming. My chest tightened, and my heart hammered against my ribs. I sat on a wooden bench in the food court, forcing myself through breathing exercises I pulled up on my phone just to keep from hyperventilating. To clear my head, I used my final $10 to buy a massive peanut butter milkshake from the counter. I sat back down on a food court bench, sipping the sugary drink, waiting for 9 o'clock so I could escape this nightmare. Then a guy walked up to me and sat down on the bench. He looked normal. Early 20s, short fade haircut, wearing a casual hoodie. He introduced himself as Daniel. He said he was a former copywriter who got laid off 6 months ago and couldn't find work. I was so relieved to talk to someone who acted human that I let my guard down. "Why are you here?" Daniel asked me softly. I sighed and confessed everything. I told him about the Reddit post, the mystery shopping job, the $100 at Starbucks, and the hourly pay. Daniel turned his head, looked at me with pale, wide eyes, and slowly shook his head. "Man, what are you talking about?" he whispered. "I work here. I've been working the night shift at the department store for 2 years." I froze. "What?" "There is no program," Daniel said, his voice dropping an octave. "There are no mystery shoppers. Nobody hired you." I stared at him, my mouth dry. Then, who sent me the email? Daniel leaned in close, his breath smelling faintly of ash. The place lures people in when it's hungry, he whispered. If you take their money, you belong to the floor. I didn't ask another question. I dropped my milkshake, sprinted across the food court, and didn't stop running until I hit the glass doors, threw myself into my car, and tore out of the parking lot. I got paid. The money hit my account at exactly 9:15 p.m., $10,000. I paid off Renzo. I'm physically safe. But earlier today, I checked my bank account balance online. There was an extra deposit, $250, with a note attached from the sender. See you tomorrow for your next shift.